Hello everyone, today is the 20th of July 2024 and I'm going to talk about President Trump. And I'm fascinated by the fact that everyone who is on his side is very happy about his choice of Vice President JD Vance. And I wondered, and I'm still wondering, whether never mind the administration, the people that he chooses for his cabinet, but within his own family and very close to him, he's certainly going to have two major influences. Of course, this is assuming that nothing else happens to him, and it is an assumption. And another assumption is that he will win the election. So two assumptions there, but let us imagine, for the sake of argument, that he does survive and that he wins the election. He has two major influences here. One is his son-in-law and the other one is his vice president. His son, that may pull him in different directions, as I said, or perhaps not, but let us look at it a little bit. On the one side, he has his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who married his daughter, Ivana Trump. Ivana Trump, he's Jewish, and Ivana converted to Judaism, and she took the name Jael. Okay, now, Jared Kushner, we have seen him during his first administration. Yes, he's the one who was working hard and brought about the Abraham Accords. He's written a book about his experiences in those 4 years in the White House. A book that is not published yet is going to be published in August, but there are some journals that have got an advance copy of the book, and he's also known for the fact that he made a comment to do with the Gaza-Israel conflict, saying that there is very valuable waterfront property in Gaza. He's a real estate guy. And he also said the same thing about, I believe it's Serbia and Albania, about the possibilities of investing in real estate in these areas. He says in his book that he knows Netanyahu very well since the early 2000s. He spoke of him as a great defender of Israel, that Netanyahu actually spent a weekend at their house in New Jersey before he got married. He was diagnosed actually with thyroid cancer in 2019 and operated on, and it seems that he's doing fine. He's defined as a modern Orthodox Jew. That is to differentiate them from the Reform Jews, the secular Jews, and also from the other. There are several Orthodox Jews dimensions. So anyway, he's a member of the modern Orthodox. They are followers. They're mainly in New York, and they are followers of someone who died in 1993, but his name was Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, who was known as the Rab, and this rabbi came from Poland, Lithuania, was born there when Poland and Lithuania was part of the same Commonwealth. Yes, so not Semitic, obviously. And he expounded a different understanding of a different aspect of Judaism, which is some hold at odds with Orthodox Judaism. And there's, I'm not going to get into the, you know, disputes of because I don't know and I don't understand it. But there are disputes and disagreements about his followers and other Orthodox Jews. Fine. Obviously, then we know where he stands politically. That is clear. Now, JD Vance is a completely different person, the vice president. He was born in Ohio, and he wrote a book about his early life. He lived in utter poverty, but not only poverty, but also a sort of a very troubled community with a lot of people, drug addicts. His mother was a drug addict. Apparently she's clean now. She has been clean for 10 years, as he said in his speech at the Republican National Convention. So he was brought up by his grandmother, and that was his main influence. So very, very working class. He, after the 9/11, he joined the Marines, then he came back, he went to university, and he ended up at Yale Law School, so he did very well for himself. And he wrote this book in 2014, Hillbilly Elegy. And then in 2019, he converted to Catholicism. And there isn't much about that because obviously the book doesn't cover his conversion to Catholicism. But there are one or two articles that I read. One essay written by him, which he titled "How I Joined the Resistance." And in that he covers his conversion. Now, I was interested in it's an essay, so he obviously, you know, it's not a book. He cannot go in great detail. I'm sure we will learn more and more about this, but he explains in a very general sense how he came to become a Catholic. And I'm going to just wait and see, because the reasons that he gives are very intellectual in a sort of way, and well, I cannot possibly judge a person's you know, religion or his reasons for it. I will have to read more and hear more about this. Because I tell you what, it's because I have my doubts, you see, not about his Catholicism. I have my doubts founded on nothing. But everyone is terribly excited, and I don't yet know where his political stand, where he stands really politically. It seems very clear at the moment. He says all the right things and so on, but that is not enough many times. So the thing is that he, after he left Yale Law School, he worked for, he was influenced, very much influenced by people who were very much part of the, what we call the globalist elite, or the deep state and so on. Of course, a person can change, yeah. Um, but I'm going myself to wait and see what. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon yet, saying how terrific the whole thing is. I'm not sure. Okay, I have been listening about the assassination attempt. It looks as if, okay, so first, this seems to be a sort of something that happens so often in American politics, doesn't it? Okay, so four presidents assassinated. Abraham Lincoln, who was shot on April the 14th, 1865, and died the next day, April 15th. James Garfield, July the 2nd, 1881, and died a couple of months later. William McKinley, in September 6, 1901, and died September the 14th. And of course, John Kennedy, November the 22nd, 1963. There have been about 8 attempts also. Theodore Roosevelt in 1912, Franklin Roosevelt in 1933, George Wallace, who was a candidate for the presidency in 1972, Gerald Ford in 1975 twice, Ronald Reagan in 1981. There was an attempt on George W. Bush, 2005, and of course now Donald Trump in 2024. Okay, so now this, what can we make of what happened? I'm not going to, you will find many channels who will discuss this, but it seems that obviously the attempt failed. But if we accept that there is information coming more and more about how it was not just the one man there on the roof. There is a, what is it called? I'll tell you later if I find it. There is a very good YouTube channel by an analyst who's analyzing the audio, the video and the audio of the shots. And I think everyone agrees that there were certainly more than 2 and probably 3 different weapons. And he tells you, he says, listen to this. And he goes, the first 3 could be from that side where the Crooks, his name was on the roof, and you hear ta-ta, 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 and then Trump goes down, and then you hear 5 ta-ta-ta-ta-ta very, very quickly, and that the sound, if you hear it, is from a different weapon and from a different place. And then there is a slight pause, and then another 1 that seems to be again a different weapon. Now Trump in his speech said that when he said when I went on the ground, as he was explaining, that there were bullets flying, and it is right. You can hear it now if you hear the video, as this gentleman, I will come to his name, I'm sorry, Peak something. You can see that there are, after he's on the ground, more bullets continue, and the weapon is a different one. Okay, so let us therefore assume that is not another assumption, that is not a lone wolf, lone gunman here. We have to face that there have been many failures lately on, on the part of those who might have been behind this assassination attempt. Because things are not going very well. You see, the thing in Afghanistan failed. The Iraq thing failed. Libya failed. Syria failed. Putin, I mean, for the last 20 years, they have been trying to assassinate in one way or another. I don't know how many times they tried with Fidel Castro. I think it was about 50. I don't think they tried 50 times with Putin, but in any case, still there. The Ukraine thing, it seems, is going to fail too. The Israel thing is not going too well. And with Trump, for them, I mean, and with Trump, he had to go through impeachments, indictments, civil suits, bankruptcies, trying to bankrupt him, smear campaigns, and all the rest of it. In other words, failed. What is happening here? So, I don't know whether you have noticed, but with President Obama, sometimes he would have a glass thing all around him to prevent things like that. So the only way that you could shoot at him would be from, right up there. This is not given to President Trump. As a matter of fact, some of his service, his Secret Service, had applied for more, and he was denied by Biden, as he was denied any Secret Service at all for Robert Kennedy. I think he has it now after this incident. Okay, so I was listening to. Are you familiar with Robert Barnes in the United States? He's a lawyer, very famous law, very articulate man who is very proud of being a working class man who made it in law, and he will not betray his people, and he is aware of where he comes from, and that is why he actually likes JD Vance too. But in his words, he says, look, Biden refused this because Biden, he says, wink, wink, not, do what you have to do the way you have to do it, kind of thing. And he says that he has the mentality of, he calls it a criminal actually, or a thug. He says he has the mentality of a street level thug, not similar to LBJ, but LBJ would be the boss of the whole thing. Biden is not boss level, is the kind of street person who would do what he needs to do. Now, yes, so he was talking, Robert Barnes was talking about the whole thing, what happened there, and remarking on those girls who were just there, not knowing what to do, the police officers and so on. So he says that they thought that these would be successful, that they wouldn't miss. And he mentions two, I found it interesting facts. One was that it was in Pennsylvania. And he says that Pennsylvania is one of those states that the justice system and the political system is really rather corrupt. And he mentioned some cases that he helped because he does a lot of pro bono work too. He's actually defending someone from the Amish community. They came after him because of he was a farmer. Anyway, it's a long story. But he says he's also now trying to defend someone, a lady who actually recorded the whole procedure of his trial, and for that she's going to be sent to prison. And the reason why she recorded it was that she found that the lawyer and the clerk were colluding to change evidence and transcripts and so on and so forth. So she is at the moment under house arrest, and he is trying to get her out of going to jail. And he gives in an interview very many examples of how Pennsylvania is particularly difficult. And he says that it was the right place to do this because you can count. If that is what you're going to do, you could count perhaps on the powers that be in the state covering for the whole thing. Yeah, he gives many other examples, but and he says, but if Biden, at one point he says, look, if Biden stepped down, Kamala Harris would be the nominee, obviously, and guess who she was looking at picking for her vice president? Governor Shapiro of the state of Pennsylvania. So he says they thought they had the allies at the top of the highest ranking state law enforcement officials. Attorney General's office, the governor's office, and they would provide cover. But what went wrong is that, you see, in that county, in Butler County, is very Republican, and you got the local cops there who actually came out afterwards. They are, for the most part, Republican, that particular county, okay? So they came out afterwards and they said, two cops came out and they've already said two things, and this is already a few days ago, that all the Secret Service area protection, that they were told that it was not their responsibility, that it was the responsibility of the other Secret Service. And he said, but even when this particular policeman said, but when we saw something weird going on, that they reported it to the Secret Service immediately, but they didn't take corrective action. And another officer actually says that there was more than one shooter. And that is, and he gave his examples and his expertise, explained it. And this is somebody who knows because it is his profession and so on. So at least, as I said, certainly two different sounds coming from two different places, different weapons, and probably the sixth, actually a different one altogether. So it's not, he suggests that perhaps it's not a coincidence that they chose for that to happen in Pennsylvania. Okay, so, But the problem with Biden, that people are saying that he's going to probably step down this weekend. I don't know, he must have done it. Perhaps today is Saturday, so I haven't been paying attention, but that that he might do it. He might resign and or say that he's not going to run himself. And uh, the problem up to now is that Biden is stubborn and he doesn't particularly want to. And the problem is that Kamala Harris is even more unpopular and Hillary Clinton is even more unpopular and Gavin Newsom is even more unpopular and Michelle Obama is actually quite unpopular except for selected groups. But she said herself, uh, Mr. Barnes says that she made it very clear that she doesn't want to run for office at all. She said that she doesn't want to go around kissing babies. he says she just doesn't like people. She probably wants to hit them. That's a little bit of a joke, obviously an exaggeration. But no, she wasn't particularly interested in politics, and she actually made it very clear to Obama that when they got out of it to concentrate on other things. And he mentions grift. I don't know. But the fact is that so far they have owned over $100 million, lots of houses everywhere, in all the places where climate change tells you not to have a house, as a matter of fact. But what I'm interested is in his analysis of Biden's personality. I remember I was in the States and I remember him being as a younger man in the 80s, Biden, when he was the head of the Judiciary Committee and Justice Thomas was being accused. He had been nominated for the Supreme Court. And at that moment, someone came along. I remember her name was Anita Hill, saying that he had embarrassed her and molested her and all kinds of things. So he was the chairman of the committee listening to all this evidence. And so I do remember Biden as a young man. He was articulate, but he was, I found him always rather rude and I found him arrogant. But that kind of arrogance that comes from people who are not too sure of themselves, that kind of arrogance that comes from resentment or a certain inferiority complex, I think. And actually, Mr. Barnes, in this interview, I was fascinated to hear what he had to say about him. He says, hoping that Biden goes along with what the Democratic Party wants him to do, not to run, it's going to be very difficult, he says, because of his inferiority complex. He always sees the others as the elites. He has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Even though he says he has always been prepared to do the elites' dirty work, as a matter of fact. And he has done that in the state of Delaware for a long, long time. That is where the state of Delaware was where all the credit cards companies placed their headquarters there. This is in the 70s and 80s because of the great rule regulations that they had there for them. Okay, so Mr. Barnes says here, even though he has done a lot of dirty work for them, let me see, hold on. So even though he has worked with them, he says, but he thinks that they look down at him. It's actually very much like LBJ in this respect. He was probably picked on at school, so he always says that at school they all told him that he wasn't smart, and his mother used to say, "No, Joe, of course you're very, very smart." But he was famous for not being very much so in the Senate. He has this thing about they think they're better than me, that kind of resentment. And I'm going to show them. And so therefore he's incredibly stubborn because of that. He doesn't want to go out in a way that he feels will make him look like a fool, kind of thing. You understand this kind of personality, that he would look like an idiot and so on. So this is something that the people, the other part of the Democrat Party, has not understood very well about him, what triggers him. You see, he comes from the old corrupt side of the Democrat Party, the old-fashioned one, the doing things with elections and in smoke-filled rooms and so on. Obama is more on the more modern, high-tech, finance, all these other things. But he's the old-fashioned guy, the old corrupt guy, and he has this thing about the elite that he's not going to let them get one over him, kind of thing, that kind of resentment, which is something that JD Vance actually doesn't have. It doesn't seem to me he has it at all. He is from, like Joe Biden, from a very poor background, but he managed to be able not to feel intimidated. When he went to Yale, for example, apparently he says in his, I haven't read the book, but I read a few paragraphs here and there, and apparently at dinner they said, like some wine, and he said, yes, I'll have white wine. Well, this or that, different kinds of white wine, and he writes, he said, I didn't know. I mean, for me there was red wine and white wine and so on. But he managed to get over that, which you have to, I know that myself, but be able not to feel inferior, genuinely be able to look at them face to face, yes, and not be intimidated. And as a matter of fact, perhaps even to a certain extent, him looking down, feeling a little bit like I know what you are about. I am not intimidated, for sure. I can actually beat you if I want to, at anything. That kind of thing. So completely different personalities here. Let me just give you a few more points about this. I don't know whether you remember about the shooting, the assassination attempt. I don't know, the very first day, you remember that a picture came out of where the shooter was, and you could see a sort of the bullet traveling there. You remember, it was everyone was talking about it. Look, this is the bullet here going from here to where Trump is and so on. Well, apparently no, because of course it was experts looked at it, and they thought it cannot be, it cannot be flat, it cannot go in a straight line, because the world is round, and so it has a certain movement. It doesn't go absolutely flat. And um, the Mr. Barnes says about that photograph, he says that going straight, flat is impossible. But he couldn't in any way come out from that roof. Excuse me. For reasons that he goes on to explain. He says that another amazing thing is that CNN, the television channel, was actually covering the event, which never does. They never go there. Also, another kind of curious thing is that the photographer that took that photograph with a camera which was going at a very recording at a very, very high speed, 800 or something, which is very rare, is actually the same photographer that caught that moment when someone, during the Bush administration, when someone is whispering, he is in a school, and someone comes forward and whispers in his ear about the towers. And that was the same photographer. And Dr. Barnes says, he actually, he's got a magical way of showing up at, very interesting events, very interesting times. Conspiracy, yes, most likely, but what has to be examined really is the scale and the scope and so on. So we might have another patsy here. And he finds it difficult to understand, unless we understand it as a patsy, that he was actually behaving like one. He was very obvious with the weapon and the ladder and all that, but not hiding, letting himself be seen. Obviously, he had a role to play, but he says he did everything, but he went just a little bit over the top. He was overdoing it, as if trying to be seen. Then there is, from that on the roof where he's supposed to be, when you see that person there is a discrepancy of whether it was actually him, because it looks, to me, it looked like a lady, actually, the shape of a lady, but certainly the hair is completely different. The one on the actual roof is like, long black hair, very full hair, healthy hair, it looks. Whereas the 20-year-old guy, Crooks, has sort of very sparse hair, greasy. It's not the beautiful flowing hair that you see in the picture. So that's a little discrepancy there. What else? The personality. What type of personality? Why would anyone agree to partake of something where he is going to be the patsy? Obviously, you have to tell them a story. You cannot just say, okay, you do this and you'll be killed. So what kind of a story do they tell them? But in any case, the personality is, Mr. Barnes talks about the, this goes back to the 1940s, trying to study human behavior and the derivative experiments that were carried out first by the Germans and the Japanese. It was medical experimentation about eugenics and method of control of altering people's minds. population control, all that sort of thing. And he talks about the MK Ultra project in the United States, and also another project called the Perfect Soldier Project, mental manipulation, really, how to become the ideal soldier, no conscience, and so on. And that they used these experiments were used mostly, obviously, on the vulnerable. They would get foster kids, they would get drug addicts, or the politically unprotected, as it were. Okay. But the main question here was, how can we get people to do what we want them to do? Yeah. So what type of personality do they get for all these roles? Yeah, like Siran, who Robert Kennedy is absolutely certain that Siran is not the man who killed his father, Senator Robert Kennedy. He's absolutely certain of that. He had been manipulated. He started shooting everywhere, I think 8 rounds or something like that, and they could count for all the bullets. What actually killed his father was someone who was part of, or became part of, the security service, and actually was right behind him and actually shot him on the head right there. Okay, and as he fell down, Robert Kennedy actually realized it and turned around and got hold of him. And there is a photograph with him holding this guy's tie, as to want to bring him down or say something. But so anyway, he knows that the man who is still in prison is not his father's assassin. And he actually fought for quite a while when they come to parole hearings to see if they can let them go. He's always there to let him go. And they actually achieved it about 2 weeks ago. And then the governor of California, Newsom, actually refused at the end, because I think it was his sister that came and said, "Oh no, I'm terribly afraid," and so on. Anyway, the poor man is still there. But who do they get? They get these loner types, people who are feeling dejected, people who want to be important and they find themselves incapable of achieving much, delusions of grandeur, no close family or friends. He feels rejected. And then in this situation, they get a mentor who looks after them and cares for them and guides them and directs them, etc. And there are usually no fingerprints left behind about this mentor. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there for today. How do you think? I'm going to keep an eye on JD Vance, because for some reason I'm not 100%, and I might be very wrong on that. Everyone I respect is happy about the choice, so it could be me. I'll let you know. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.